My most popular program is Find Any File. It's for those who have used Macs 15 or 20 years ago will probably recognize the design of it because I blatantly copied Apple's design of the Findfile program that used to be there before Sherlock and before Spotlight. So you basically have this little window in which you specify where you want to search by default in your startup disk, but you can also say networks, can specifically select a folder or one of the volumes that is mounted right away. I have my boot volume. I'm on Catalina here in the demo, and I also have a data volume where I put all my other stuff on it because in VMware the other one got too small eventually. So added a new volume. Anyway, so this program is basically what you could search on the Mac before you had Spotlight. And to understand what the difference is, before you could basically only search for file names, dates, sizes, things like that, mainly file names. So you would remember something like, oh yeah, I had this document that was something about whatever holidays, trips or whatever, and you search for the name, and hopefully if you named it right, you would find the file back. Then Spotlight changed the whole game in the way that Apple creates a database, in the way that any file that you create, a little program which is called MD Find or MD Importer, something like that, will be run on every file that you create. And this importer will then figure out what type of file it is, will figure out if there are any applications installed that say, I can understand that type because I probably created it. And then they will run a little program that this application may provide that will import the textual data extracted out of that file. So basically, when you create or download a PDF file, this MD importer will start looking, okay, who can read PDF files? It'll find a plugin that is actually written by Apple and let it scan the file and then extract all the textual data from it and add that to the Spotlight database on your computer. And it will only do that to files that are in your in your own domain of files, like on the desktop in your documents folder, things like that, but not if you place them, for instance, on your external network storage disk, on your NAS backup system. It will not scan them there. But anyway, so it will scan most of the files that usually your files that you download or create. And for instance, if it's a file like a something, whatever, let's say some other program that creates databases on itself or files on itself that Apple doesn't understand because it's a proprietary format, then this program can also provide an importer for it, and then that can be run. So the thing is with Spotlight, two things. One is it maintains a database of everything that it has seen, and then it can very quickly search the database for information. The other thing is it will even be able to find information inside files that Apple doesn't know about, but the maker of the program that you have installed knows about. So it can practically understand any file format and extract text from it, as long as the developers of that program that writes the files is willing to make an importer for it. So far, so good. Find any file which mimics what Apple had before Spotlight can't do all that. It basically only finds what you used to find, which is by file name, and it does it live. So it will search your disks where you say to search. It will not use a database. So it has quite a shortcoming in that direction because Spotlight is more modern and more flexible. But there is still lots of cases where Spotlight doesn't help, like, for instance, on network on remote volumes. Spotlight doesn't find it so well. It can do it, but it's more difficult to get Spotlight to look there. And the interface of my program, Find Any File, should make that easier. Now, let me see, do I even have some shared folders? I never set, oh yeah, I have access to my, so these are practically network folders in VMware, but they point to my host computer. And I'm currently showing hidden files. Okay, so I have, for instance, my developer folders here and whatever. So if I would search for something like, what could I look for? Notes, whatever. Or let's look for something like invoice. Any files that would be called invoice by name would now be searched, because I say the criteria is, the search rule is name contains invoice. And if I look at the classic list, let me just right click on this and turn off the path. We don't need that here. We'll see that it finds some weird files here that are called Air Europa com invoice skeleton JS. I click on that, I'll see it's something in the system. It's provided apparently by Apple. There's also a Omeo invoice, which is also, it's in mail. Okay, so this seems to be a file that 15th. Oh, that's just the other day. Okay, so it found this file not because there is invoice in the PDF file, but because its name is that. So basically, you have other options here, and you can look for last modification date. File size is usually not important. A kind, which would say, let's find all images, and or all video files, audio files, Word files, spreadsheets includes numbers and Excel files, and so on. If I would say find image, it will find quite a lot. It will show them in the background. While it's still loading, you cannot really interact with the files because it would kind of make not much sense, because then the files jump around while they get sorted in there. So you either have to stop the search when you see what you're looking for, or let it finish. We'll see, mainly it finds, oh, it's actually sorted by kind currently. So we find some Photoshop files here, icons and whatnot. And I'll stop it now because it finds like thousands. Because I searched everywhere on the startup disk, which is mostly files provided by Apple again. The other thing is, which is quite helpful now that we have so many files, we're actually looking for something in a specific area, not in the system folder. So if I switch to this other view, I see it only the found files. I see so let me open the users folders here, and then my folder, temp here is my username here on this computer. And I can see where the files are. And for instance, the stuff in the caches is not really interested in me. What I can now also do is I can go to the results menu and say, oh, I don't need these in the results because they're not interesting to me. I could also use remove all the private ones, remove them from the results. Actually, I only want to find stuff that's in my users or in my applications folder, so I don't care about the library and systems either. I remove those. And while I do that, you will see that the number of matched items is actually reduced. It was 9,000 in the beginning, and now it's less, many fewer. I can also remove the trash, or I can actually say with trashed items, if I make the window a little bit wider, I can say, oh, I want to hide the trashed folders no matter where they are, because there could be more than one trash folder, and I'll just hide them. So now it says that, oh, there were over 2,800 actually inside the trash that are now not shown anymore. So this leaves me with 600 that are either in the applications or users folder. And now if I switch back to the other view, which I had earlier, now the list is of course shorter, and it only shows these 629 files. So it makes it a little bit easier to sort through the stuff if there is too much and overwhelming. Like in this case where I have a lot of images. I can also click on any here, and then I see the location. But I also see there are hidden files in here that are in some other hidden folders. I also didn't want to look for those, so I'll hide the invisibles as well. So that leaves me 370. And now I can go through the other view, which is the icon view. And now I see actually previews of all the files that were found. Now here's, for instance, my little MacHack coffee mug. I'm not drinking from that today. MacHack 2001 Hack Odyssey. That was a developers conference in don't know, where did that happen? Anyway. So you see, you can scroll through the pictures here. So if you were looking for a specific picture, now that you have sorted out what you wanted to look at and what not, it makes it much easier to scroll through the rest of it and maybe find the files that you were looking for. Yeah, so that's how you basically use find any file. You can also do operations on them, like in the Finder. So if you select a few files here, or also if I select something here, let's say, oops, that was a double click. Sometimes happens in the, let's click on these and maybe on this one as well. If I switch back to the other view, it will immediately select them also in the other view and show them in the hierarchy here. That makes it easy to orientate yourself still. Okay, so what I could also do here from the Resultsville menu, I have this typical stuff like open with, reveal in Finder, get info, which is also get info in Finder. It shows me the infos of these files. And I can also right click and get the same abilities here. I can do the quick look, move them to trash immediately, create an alias. So if you want to kind of keep a reference to everything, you just create an alias for all the selected files, and you select the folder where you want to have them. And I'll go to the desktop and say open. And now I get, there you see a little bug, I would say, because it wanted to create two aliases for two files that have the same name but are in different places. My software didn't consider that special case and didn't create the other one with a different name. So it should have created the other alias for the second one under a different name so that they don't collide. So I was just informed that so I only got two aliases now, so one of them. But you see them on the desktop here, the alias files. So that works as well. Also, I can change the set label. I cannot set tags. I wanna add that, but that's a little bit more difficult to provide. This is still a hobby project for me, and so I do that on my spare time. Anyway, I can also make them invisible, or when they're visible, make them visible again. I can remove them from the results, as I showed you before, to clean up just the list of. And I can use services, so anything that is installed that can also work on files, like here, for instance, open them in BBEdit, because BBEdit, or compare, which is a nice feature in BBEdit. I could use that if there were text files and so on. So it's more, it's like a little bit like a Finder. Oops, hold on. I clicked the wrong focus here. I just wanted to show you another neat feature. How much can someone write to the into the chat how much time I've spent or how much I have left, please? I didn't pay attention when I started. I wanted to show you one of the other practical things, which is I created something recently or something like that, and I can say I just want to find something within the last X hours, days, weeks, months, and I can then also create, add other So for instance, it was something that I created in the last 5 hours, and it was a text file. Let's see what it finds here. And if I switched here, I see, oh yeah, I created these files. Well, some of them I'd created, others were created by my program, for instance, a log file from Find Any File. So that's also quite practical. And apparently, oh yeah, I created this just earlier when we started the path file. That's another thing. Just when I started, I had done a search that found every file inside the library folder, which are also a few thousand files. And I saved it somewhere, and I forgot where. So let me just do that again. That was in the last hour. I already had it, but I closed it again. And I see it, so I can stop the search. So this file ended up, oh, I stored it in the library folder, which is, I wanted it on the desktop folder. So I can also just move it to the desktop folder, and it'll be like in Finder, it'll just move it there. So now if I look, now it's in the desktop folder, it was in the library folder. The nice thing is, this is a path file, and if you open that in a text, in a text editor, like for instance BBEdit or TextEdit, you will see that it contains the path of each file that it found. So I actually saved all the results. I can show you here as well as how I do that usually. So I have these results and can just say save or save as. And it gives the name of the search criterion, but I can of course just rename it. And I save it to the desktop. I have a new path file here, and if I open that in BBEdit, it'll show me exactly the path of the files that I have here. So I can preserve the found files, the paths to it. And the nice thing is, let's close them again. If I quit Find Any File, and later I just double click this file, it'll launch Find Any File. Haha, it opens a different version. Anyway, here we see the result of the found files again. So you can preserve the results and open them later again. And since they're just in a simple text file, you could even use other programs to create these lists on your own. If you Apple script or whatever, and you have another program that can create lists of files, actually even the Finder can in a way. So if I use the Finder to go into the so for instance, here in the Finder, I have my applications, put them in here. So I can select them, go into the Edit menu, hold down the Option key, and then I now get copy eight items as path names. If I let go of the Option key, it's just copy 8 items. But if I say copy at path names, and now I go into an editor and paste, you will see that I get also exactly these path names. So if I could even use that now, save it as my apps.path, save it on the desktop. Now it's here. I can double click it and open it and find any file and see the same list here. And I could now select them and use, for instance, make invisible, set label, so features that you don't get in the Finder. Another nice feature is that Find Any File, that's why it's called Any File. If you find something that is actually hidden in, let me see, do I have more than one user in my system? I believe, no, I didn't set it up, but usually if you maintain the computer, but there are more than one user created, like for instance, for your family and your children are also having, usually you cannot go into their folders. But if you were searching for something that might be in their folder, you can say file contains whatever school whatever papers, something that contains both the name, the word school and paper in the file name. And now if you hold down the Option key again, Find turns to Find All. And now if you click it, it asks you to enter your admin password. I hope I remember this one. And now it will search with the root permissions all over the disk, which means it will now also find items in other users' folders. It doesn't find anything here because I didn't choose a criterion that would find something. But that's basically another nice feature that is there. And of course, you will find files in locations that Spotlight doesn't, like network volumes easily, and for instance, in the system, like just to demonstrate, there is the hosts file, which was just recently needed to do to edit when there was this little hiccup at Apple a few days ago, where you couldn't launch Apple programs for a few hours, and people posted solution to modify the hosts file. So let me see if I wanted to find that file. It finds it. It's the host file in the private etc hosts. And I can also drag that now into BBEdit and modify it. So Spotlight wouldn't find that file, at least not with the usual find options that you have here. You would have to use extended Spotlight options, which is a little bit difficult. All right, so that's basically the basic features. Okay, so if anybody has some questions, just feel free to ask in the chat. I'm just looking at my notes if there was something specific. Oh, just to say, since I did the presentation, so I said that in the beginning, I saved all the library files, or all files that I searched in the library folder. And these are how many lines? 24,000 files it found, items inside the my library folder. Now, if I do the same thing again, if I'm lucky, it's still in the recent search, or I type too many, it only remembers the 10 last ones. Oh yeah, it was this search here. There is actually not an easy way to say I want to find everything, because usually you would be specific to find something. But if you say name does not contain something that is surely not existing, so just some random stuff, it'll find everything else. That way I find everything in the library folder. So when I do that, yes?
Thomas, there was a
Yes.
question. Will your
I see.
program search in Dropbox files?
Yes, it will, because Dropbox is just, it's same with iCloud. Anything that is actually existing on your disk as a file will be found. It used to be a little bit difficult with iCloud because iCloud tried to be a little bit sneaky about where the files are that are in the cloud. Nowadays, it finds also the iCloud files, but if actually I had actually a test set up, but I should have. Anyway, but yes, Dropbox files will be found because they just exist as real files on the disk. iCloud files that are only in the cloud but not on your Mac will appear as something similar, which is they will have a slightly different name that indicate that they're currently offloaded to the iCloud. But they will still be found if you find them by name, but not by other properties, because Apple, if the file is just offloaded to iCloud, then most of the properties aren't true other than the name.
And how long did it take you to write this program?
Well, I started in 2005, exactly when Apple stopped providing the classic Findfile. And that was in 2005. I made it first free. I wrote it in back then in Real Basic. Then later in Zojo, it's called now. But eventually I had to update it for Catalina, and then I rewrote it completely again. So the original version that was free, version 1, I wrote in a weekend. And you will find similar programs like iFileX and other tools that look like Find Any File, and they seem to have the same features. And they were written in a weekend or a little bit more. But I mean, just to rewrite the one in Xcode 2 years ago, many hundred hours, because there are so many little things that you want to get right. And yeah, that's why it's a hobby. I don't make enough money to really justify the effort I put in. It's actually it's paying me to have an extra spending money. That's nice, but if I would have to live of it nowadays, I wouldn't. I would rather put it into something else. Let's say it like that.
Well, then a question of my own then would be, how do you enjoy the Swift platform framework as compared to the previous ones?
I actually when I had it rewritten it 2 or 3 years ago, it started rewriting. Actually, Swift was already available for a while, and I decided against Swift because it was still evolving. And I like Swift a lot by its language and its abilities. I find it sometimes being a little bit too convoluted and too, how would I say? I'm someone who grew up with writing assembly language, so I want to know what's going on the lowest level. It also makes it easy for me to understand how code impacts overall performance, things like that. And Swift is going a little bit too far into the direction where I can't really understand anymore what it's doing on the lower end. It does its magic, and it's a little bit, I don't like it because then I can't debug it. I can't work around it if there is a bug in it, because I can still do it, but I'm staying with Objective-C, and it's not going away anytime soon because Apple uses it still in most of their software anyway, and they cannot just cancel that and rewrite it all in Swift. That would be insane. So I'm happy with Objective-C, but I tinker around in Swift with new little things as well.
Does this work in 64-bit format?
Yes. That's why I had to rewrite it, because back then Real Basic was limited to 32-bit, and they eventually made it possible to also work in 64-bit. But they are missing a few abilities, like for instance, I couldn't do multi-threading and use. So one of the nice features that I added just after adding, which is I can now search for file content. But as I explained earlier, for instance, many file formats, how would I say? If you want to find text, for instance, I know that I have a PDF file, or well, let me just find PD. Just want to show you. It's just as a demonstration. I want to find PDFs. Just any PDF. Okay, that's enough. Just want to take one as an example. Oh, no, I need to find something with text in it. Oh, they're all pictures. Maybe. Oh, here's the invoice. What is Omeo? Anyway. Oh, travel agency. Anyway, so here is a booking number. Hold on. Oh, that was my trip to England. Now I know. Okay, I want to copy that text. And let me just double check. Oh, here's another program of my iClip. And I see I copied it to the recorder as well. Anyway, so now I wanted to search for that. I know this invoice number. I want to find it on my computer. And actually, to be fair, let me just look again where it was. You can also hear Omeo. They were all in which folder? They're all in the mail. So let me just search just in the mail folder. Oh, I wanted to search this in the mail folder so that it's a little bit faster, because otherwise, looking for file content, if I were searching the entire disk, it would take a long time. Well,
Okay.
actually only a few minutes, but we'll see. So anyway, so I only searched there. But if I look for the file, it will not find it in the PDF because it was quite fast. Because PDFs are compressed and I just look for plain text appearing in the file. So this is one reason where you cannot use find any file yet to search for content that Spotlight easily finds. But I will add search for certain known file types where I know how to search them, which includes Word files and also PDF files, because I will add code that will decompress them, and then I can find text inside them. But just to give you a demonstration, if I would search actually on the startup disk for all these, it will find, it will search, it will now look at every file on the disk. And I can tell you it's still fast if I look for activity monitor, because find any file uses multi-threading. And if I look at the find any file, currently it only uses not even 100% CPU, but it could use all the CPUs. I think I set up this machine for using multiple CPUs. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it uses 2 CPUs, so it could go up to 200%, but it doesn't even do that because it's highly optimized, the search operation. But I can get it where all the CPUs, even on my 8 core CPU, and it's turning on all the fans, but it will be very fast searching, and I'll improve on that in the next versions anyway. Okay, that's, I think, enough. So yeah, so as I see the comment by Steve Quattrone, you can search for text strings if it's appearing in plain text. So just anything that you can find in BBEdit as plain text, I can also search. So for instance, if I would open the PDF file in BBEdit, you will see that if you browse through this, it looks like text, but the text is mainly the instructions from PDF. Like for instance, here is a box that contains a picture or whatever, but the actual text is contained in compressed streams where you can't see the text, and that's why find any file cannot currently see it. But soon it will understand these instructions and then say, oh, there's a compressed stream, I decompress it, and then I can search for the text in it. All right, enough of that. So I can search for some file content. For instance, for the hosts file that I searched earlier, it would find the contents of the host files because that's all plain text. Oh, so what I said, I wanted to finish that one thing about the search for in library. So let me just search again in library. It will find now all files in the library folder again. And I'll save that again to the desktop. I call it lib2 path. And now I can open this one and this one in BBEdit, the earlier one and the new one. So there is the path from earlier on, and here is the new path. I should probably sort them both so that they actually appear in the same order. Otherwise, it may be a little bit inefficient to. That's hold on. Text sort lines. Sort lines. Yeah, just do it. I think that's what I text sort lines. Ta-da. Oh, they were probably already so. And now I can say search, compare the two. Wait a minute, why doesn't it find differences? Okay, so left the old one, right the new one, compare them, and now it will show me all the differences. This would be all the files that have changed since we started in my library folder. And I will, so the display isn't optimal. I wonder if there is a different one where I can see them. Oh, it should be the view text display. I want to see them not next to each other, but below one the other. Does someone, I think there was an option to do that. Window appearance. Now, anyway, there was a way to see them on top of each other. Then I would be able to see the path much better. But I can see here that only a few parts have been changed. Like for instance, here an autosave file in the preview has been created. So that also helps me. If I install software, I could save the list of, for instance, the library folder before and afterwards and see if it installed something in the library folder. But that's kind of special stuff that probably most people don't really need, but I wanted to show a little bit of the special abilities that you can do. All right. So that's this. I also wanted to give you a brief overview of the other programs that may be interesting to you. One is the Prefs Editor. Every program has preferences, and they're usually stored in a certain way that I can look at. Let me see, there's some other question there. Are there limitations from Apple's security, such as needing full disk access? Yes, if you start Findfile the first time, it'll actually ask you. I can just show you. Well, actually, you will see. If you start it, it'll ask you to give Findfile full disk access. That should be. Okay, so the Prefs Editor, you can, like, for instance, I want to look for find. So I want to open the prefs of Findfile of my tool that I just showed you. And it'll show you all the preferences that the program has stored. And usually you give, I as a programmer can give the preference, each stored preference, a name. And I give them usually sensible names, although the nomenclature is not always consistent. So there's, for instance, one that will, the preference whether you want to calculate the size of files that you found. So I'll show you. Oh, here. Okay. So I wonder why it's, I should probably launch this one. It shouldn't ask me every time. It should remember that. That's weird. Anyway. There are preferences. There is a preference to expand all folders, or here, calculate size. So if I turn that on, now it's on here as well in this program. If I turn it off, I go back, you will see now it knows it's called turned off. So they get in sync right away. I can also do it the other way. If I turn it on here, it should turn on here as well. So these things are immediately synchronized. But the nice thing is there are also hidden preferences that you don't see in the preference window of my application, but there are still there, like for instance, the mode expert, which is currently not visible because I tell you about in the manual about it. So there is, so it's kind of a hidden preference that you have to know about. And the name, I prepared that in my iClip, it's mode.expert. So if I now say I want to add a new preference, I instead of typing it, I can just get it here from my clippings. It's a Boolean yes, no thing. I add it. Now it's in the preferences. It's turned on by default. And now, if I'm not sure if I have to restart Findfile, what I do. And now, actually, you have more options here. Options that most people don't want to know about, like owner ID of files or file type code, the old file type or creator code. So you get more options now. You would also get them even if that option was turned off in Find Any File. You would also get them if you hold down the option key before you click here, you will also find them. Anyway, so that's one of the things that with Prefs Editor, you can see preferences and you may find preferences that are normally not visible and modify them. BBEdit also has a few of them. So if I look for BBEdit here, there are the BBEdit preferences. You may find also some here, but actually BBEdit doesn't make them available unless you know about them, I believe. Although no, those are ones that you have in the. What I'm saying is, it's usually if people want you to fiddle with preferences that are not you would have to use terminal type default, the name, blah, blah, blah. And Prefs Editor is just a fancier interface for it where you don't have to use the command line, but have them right in front of you. So that's basically it. It's more something for people who like to fiddle with the system than the usual normal user case. I won't show you. That's for damaging your disks if you like to. It's actually to explore disks on the lowest level. I used to use it to repair, for instance, boot camp volumes if Apple destroyed them by accident when you added a new partition. There was information on my website about it, but it's pretty advanced stuff. Find any empty folders is a free utility that just finds empty folders on your disk. So if I would drop any disk on it or a folder, it will search inside and find all the empty folders. For instance, there are empty folders inside lots of stuff that is not really important right now. Maybe I search instead in my home or in my desktop folder. There's nothing. Well, let's just create some empty folder in the desktop folder and put, first I put some file in there. So now if I say, I go to my home folder, drag in the desktop folder, and it will find no empty folders. Now if let me get rid of this window. Now if I clean out the stuff in my folder that I had there, say search again, now it finds an empty folder called untitled folder. It also finds it under the desktop. And inside it still has files in it, like the folder and a DS store file. So it's not really empty because there's still a hidden DS store file inside, which I can not make visible right now. Sometimes there's a trick to make it visible. Anyway, so there's a hidden file in it, but it's practically empty because it's only containing hidden files. So you would, you could now decide, okay, yeah, that's empty enough for me. Let's just trash it. Or I can say, reveal it, so I want to look at it. Okay, it's this empty folder. I look into it. Oh, yeah, there's just this and nothing else. Okay, let's trash it. Whoop, it's gone. And now it's removed from the desktop folder. So that's, oops, always. So that's basically, oops, okay. That's basically find empty folders. It's helpful to clean up stuff, but don't empty everything that it finds because it may be fine. For instance, usually you don't want to look in invisible folders because it may be something that the system maintains there, but it's there if you need it. Another program would be launched that is not really interesting. What's Open? It used to be interesting to use What's Open. It's a program that lists all the open files on your system, by which program it's held open, where it is, and by which user. And for instance, I want to see which files are open on my other volume, on data vault, because I would want to eject it and there are files on it. So if I would try to eject it now, it would probably not work because because now the Finder tells me in Catalina, I cannot eject it because there are programs like BBEdit What's Open using it. In older macOS versions, you wouldn't get this detailed information, what kept it open often. So you would guess and like, oh, what's keeping it from getting ejected? And that's where you would use What's Open. You would then say, okay, what's open on the data vault folder? You would scroll through it and see, oh yeah, there is the application this and this that keeps these files open. I'm going to quit this open application. And it might even tell you that it's the Finder. And even nowadays, you can still find that sometimes Finder, after you aborted some operation like deleting or copying something, you aborted it, it sometimes keeps stuff open. And then you can eject the volume. And What's Open would then also show you that the Finder keeps these files open. You was, yeah, that's why you can select it and say, kill the program. You could kill the Finder that way. And then afterward, you should be able to to eject the file. Okay. So I think that concludes my, oh yeah, I just wanted to give you one last look at iClip. That's another program. I didn't write that originally. It was written by someone else called a guy who then eventually realized that he wouldn't get rich with it, came up with the whole bundle hunt or these things where you would have a bundle of applications at a lower price. I think he was the guy who actually invented that or started doing that on the Mac. Then he became insanely rich and abandoned this program iClip. It was abandoned for a few years because he didn't bother with it anymore. Then a friend of mine actually bought it, the rights to it. And then I became the developer of iClip. I took it over, cleaned up the code, modernized it, and now it works even on Big Sur. And so I'm kind of the maintainer of the program. I also add a lot of features to it. It's Apple scriptable deeply. It's basically a recorder for anything that you copy. So in any application where I select something and copy it, it ends up in the recorder unless you tell it explicitly that you don't want to record from certain programs, like for instance from your password program, so that passwords don't end up in. But by default, it records everything that you copy, and then you can later paste it again. Like for instance, here I copied the disk, so it has a reference to the disk now, and I can go to a different program, text edit here, and paste back stuff that I copied earlier. I can insert it here. And while it records everything and it kicks out the old stuff eventually, you can also have different sets where stuff is persistently, and you can add more persistent other sets for different kinds of work, where you can add text to it, or also clippings. Like for instance, if I make a little screenshot here of something, it's a picture. I can also copy that and hold on, the icon shouldn't cover the thing. So I can also drag that in here, and now it remembers this, and I can from then on, if I have it in rich text, I can now paste it also into my other files, pictures. So if I yeah, whatever, you get the idea. So it's basically a recorder for clipboards. It's a very old one. There are other ones that are more modern, that look more modern. But iClip is probably the most complex one, and especially since I added Apple scripting. So you can not only script it to put stuff in there or get out of it, but you can even filter stuff that it records, so that it records extra information. For instance, like the websites, URLs, it puts, remembers them, things like that. Anyway, very complex. Just want to point that. So I'm finished now. So if there are any questions, if there is even time, so go ahead. Thanks for watching.